Okay, so this activity is called Anyone for Cake. It's for a grade 2 class and it's on division. So what you would need is Play-Doh, some plastic knives, or you could even just use plastic rulers, cookie cutters in a square and circle shape, and that's it. So I would show the children these pictures of cake and ask them some questions. What is it? What's happened? How many pieces are there? The one here on the right has 2 pieces, so it's cut in half. The one on the left, I would get them to count the pieces. If need be, I would put a piece of paper covering 4 and then get them to count this half and ask them to predict how many slices are in the other half. Then what I would do, I'd move on and give each child a lump of Play-Doh and some cookie cutters to share on their table. And I'd have the students roll out and make a circle and a square, and I'd push aside the remaining Play-Doh. And then I'd ask the students to take the circle, put it in front of them, and we'll focus on the circle. And I would ask the students to cut it in half and stress that the half needs to be equal parts, so it's not one smaller and one bigger, but cut it in half into 2 equal parts. So I'd ask them how many parts are there. There's 2, so that's 2 halves. Then I'd ask them to cut one half in half, again stressing that they need to be equal parts, and to do the same with the other half. So this green one here, I'd get them to cut both of the halves in half again, so that then we would have 4 pieces. And I'd stress that the 4 pieces has been, one circle cut into 4 is 4 quarters. Then I would say do it again with each quarter, cut each quarter in half. How many pieces do you have now? They'd say there are 8 pieces. And I'd say the circle has been cut into eighths. And I'd remind them that eighths is easy to remember because it's almost the same as the word 8. Then I'd move on to the square, and I'd use the square as a little bit of an assessment. If they've had previous lessons on this, you could use the square as an assessment. If it's just an introduction, maybe not so much, but with the circle there was a lot of guidance and repeating of the word half, quarter and eighths. With the square, I'd back off a little bit and say, cut the square in half, cut the square into quarters, cut it into eighths, and see how much they can remember and how well they respond to those new words. Extension could be using different shaped cookie cutters like flowers, gingerbread men, Easter eggs. Of course, a gingerbread man or a flower might be a bit hard because once you cut it in half, if you cut it in quarters, it's not going to be equal, but it is an extension activity. Then part 2 of the activity, I would have pre-cut circles and squares of different coloured paper. So move away from the Play-Doh and then move to the paper activity where students are to collect pieces to be able to glue into their workbook or onto a sheet, a circle cut into half and a circle cut into quarters and a circle cut into eighths. So they need to find all the relevant pieces and then pre-distinguish whether they're to all be the same colour or not, whatever. And do the same with other regular shapes, say squares, rectangles, whatever. So language would be half halves, quarter quarters, eighths, 1/8, cut, divide, equal parts, Play-Doh, Some misconceptions would be, I think that the students may not cut into equal parts if I don't stress that in the beginning. They might cut the circle into an 80-20 type version. So you have to really stress the equal parts bit. They could very well confuse a half for quarter or a quarter for half. And they could also cut a piece that they've already cut. So it's important for them to be aware of what a quarter looks like, what a quarter of a square looks like, and what an eighth of a square looks like.